Welcome to our milestone 20th episode of Really Doing It. Today, we're celebrating with a theme that trips up almost everyone. It's called the messy middle. With me, as usual, is my co-host Michiel. But today we have a very special guest, Panagiota Panagiotaki, psychologist, leadership consultant, and founder of Premium Leading.
Well, thanks, Philip. And anyone who's launched a new project will recognize the pattern. You start with real enthusiasm, almost high on momentum and possibility. And one will face real issues, from tech hiccups to clunky workflows. And then suddenly, what felt effortless at the start becomes a daily grind. And the tough part wasn't just the external challenges, but the feeling that what we worked yesterday now barely moved the needle. And that sense of, are we stuck? Is shockingly common, even for teams that plan carefully. Seeing your metrics slow down forces you to rethink not just tactics, but our confidence in what the project could be. And Panagiota, having a psychologist and leadership consultant here is such a gift. And this phase, the messy middle, still throws me sometimes. So I'm curious to hear why it's not just normal, but foundational.
Thank you both. Thank you for having me here. The messy middle is actually where the real work occurs, and sometimes the real magic happens. It's less Instagrammable, but what you learn in the heartbeats shapes everything that follows.
Okay, well, let me share a personal story here. When I kicked off publishing my first book, I admit my optimism masked some deep blind spots. The debut chapter had a kind of party vibe, excitement, new ideas flying around, and validation everywhere. But reaching the midpoint, everything slowed down. I remember trying to implement a can't miss strategy and watching almost in real time as it fell flat on its face. And that feeling of shouldn't this be easier by now? I know I've finished a couple of chapters, so it should be easier, but it wasn't. It's both humbling and a bit scary. And you start second guessing even every paragraph, and small setbacks suddenly loom much larger. And the hardest part wasn't fixing broken writing process, it was digging in when progress got invisible. I had to learn not to panic at certain plateaus, and the messy middle became a sort of leadership bootcamp. Instead of trying to push everywhere every sentence, I started looking for what was quietly helping to me and to keep on writing, or what could be tweaked, even if the victories were smaller than I expected. So, Philip, did you have any one moment maybe in one of your projects where you wondered, is this worth it? And sometimes naming those doubts is what gives them less power.
Absolutely, Michiel. Actually, I'm there right now. We've been working on RPM for about a year now, and although we keep making progress, we have had people showing up for webinars and the live meetings that we did. However, so far we do not have a single paying member. The first live session that we did in Utrecht had about 10 people who showed up. I remember thinking, this is great, we're off and running. Then everything fell flat. I know that what we are doing is worthwhile and important. I also know what I'm saying is very vulnerable here. But I know it's a matter of time, just a matter of time until we start to get some real traction, so long as we keep going. But it's immensely frustrating. I often ask myself, is it worth it? And of course I keep saying yes, but occasionally the little voice on my shoulder says, why bother? That is, however, just a reminder that we are in the messy middle right now. For sure, it's not always easy to keep going and going and going and to stay motivated in the face of negative feedback, or almost worse, no feedback. Some people would even call it stupid, but I am committed to making this work. Momentum is such a fickle thing, but the most important thing is that we keep moving forward regardless of the feedback that we get. People notice you when you start and when you finish, but not all the work that you do in the middle of the race.
That's true. Those plateaus are completely normal, and not just for startups or for entrepreneurs. They show up everywhere, from Olympic athletes to global organizations. At Premium Leading, I often meet driven leaders and founders who feel deep frustration right in this phase. The messages I hear most are, I should be further along by now, or others seem to progress faster. This self-judgment is almost universal, but rarely talked about openly. Actually, people feel ashamed of saying those things. The real pivot happens when we stop measuring ourselves by imagined timelines and instead get genuinely curious about what's unfolding beneath the surface. When energy is low and visible winds dry up, that's often where enduring growth takes root, even if it's not Instagram worthy. I encourage my clients to ask, what am I learning that isn't obvious yet? Because often the skills, connections, or insights emerging now will prove invaluable later. Instead of blaming themselves, I coach people to watch for hidden lessons, which are always present in that sticky middle.
Well, have you ever experienced that in your own life, Panagiota?
Oh, many times. And like Phil said, right now I'm in one of those messy middles. Um, when I started out in psychology, I had this image of a linear, quick ascent, study hard. That's what I used to hear from my tutors, mentors, teachers, get credentials, help people, and then you're there. I've arrived. But the reality was much less glamorous, of course. There were extensive, sometimes tedious periods spent researching, running pilot sessions, organizing data, even the logistics of the whole work. A work that felt endless and far from the rewarding client breakthroughs that I've always wished and imagined.
Mm-hmm.
There were stretches where nothing seemed to be moving. And of course, my self-doubt was there creeping in.
Mm-hmm.
So I questioned my own capacities and even the path I had chosen. But looking back, I see that it was within those less visible, less dramatic months that my core skills, my capacity for resilience were truly built. Okay, so it's the moment when you say it's like when you climb up in the marathon. There is a great paradigm in why the big athletes and championships do not participate in Greek marathon, which is the original one.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is no record here. And you know why? Because there is a high slope of 10 kilometers that actually crushes all records. That's why most of the athletes prefer, for example, the Marathon of Berlin. So this 10 kilometers of big slope is when most of the athletes say, now we'll quit or I will keep going on. This is it, the messy middle. It's like this great marathon,
Uh-huh.
super 10-kilometer slope. And I've felt it quite a few times. If you quit at that moment, as the athletes say, actually your legs will lock and you will not be able to keep moving forward. The issue here is to keep moving even if you think this is very, very slow and you feel visibly static.
Yeah.
Actually, what I gained from it is that those experiences made me far more effective consultant of what I am today, because I understand what it feels like to be that static and feeling this almost non-progress, because I learned how vital patience and perseverance are to real mastery, and thanks to that, I'm able to transmit that to my clients.
I love that, Panagiota. And actually, you're making me think maybe I need to do the marathon in Greece.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
For sure.
I've done two of them, but never with a 10-kilometer slope in the middle.
I will be there to cheer you up for sure. And the entrance to the Kalimarmaron is always, they say, majestic, especially because the people reaching this stadium, they remember at that moment the 10 kilometers that were there, and they remember that it was really worth it to keep on moving on climbing on the slope.
But the analogy is so powerful because I myself have done 2 marathons, and it's it's not even the middle. The middle is okay, but it's when you're getting closer to the end, you're at 30 kilometers, 32, 35, even 40. It is so hard to keep going sometimes because you have no energy, no one's there, you're all by yourself. It's just you and the road. So it's a great analogy, and it definitely helps me in my business life as well. But let's get back to the meat of the podcast. I would like to get a bit nerdy now. So, Panagiota, why does the brain struggle in the messy middle? Why do we crave quick wins and work against long-term effort? Certainly, I know for myself that while over time I'm much better at recognizing the messy middle for what it is really hard to go long periods of time without experiencing real success and any kind of quick win.
Well, Philip, this messy middle actually has a strong foundation in neuroscience and the way our brain is wired. The brain is rewired for reward. This is very, very old because reward actually was very much connected to existence and survival. So when we start something new and exciting, then there's a rush. Dopamine lights up the reward center, making progress feel thrilling and quick. But as we move into the routine, the repetitive actions that you need to do brick by brick by brick by brick, you see the routine, in order to build what you want to create, because it's a long-term success, the novelty fades, the excitement goes down, measurable achievements are slow, or we think they're slow because sometimes we don't measure them correctly, and that reward signal slows too. So as a result, the motivation drops and your frustration grows. This emotional discomfort is normal, okay? Frustration is essentially a signal that expectations aren't being met. So what we do at Premium Leading, I teach actually my clients to treat these emotional responses as a feedback, not failures.
Yeah.
They understand what they mean. They give some valuable messages. For example, when stress or discouragement show up, instead of ignoring or resisting these triggers, the emotional triggers, it's important for them to track them and ask questions like, what is my mood today versus last week? Or what is really triggering my sense of irritation? What is the message this emotion wants to convey to me? The information I need really, really carefully to hear. By reframing these emotions like data, people start to notice patterns of behavior, and they can use this awareness to choose better responses, better actions. So motivation also shifts because the brain craves novelty. Once processes are set and days feel repetitive, it's natural to lose that early enthusiasm. So this is where we need to deliberately introduce variety, whether it's self-reflection, inviting feedback from others, or revisiting the original purpose behind your project. Frequently, I'll help my clients reconnect with their whys or encourage them to find fresh learning edges within their routine work. Sometimes it's the smallest tweaks that make the difference, like setting up a learning challenge or reaching out to a peer or a mentor that can reignite the spark that makes continued effort feel worthwhile. Even the little routines in the day, the fact that you have to do some small things to change. For example, I will do this work first, that work later on, or introduce some other triggers, like listening a little bit to the music when you do some more trivial things. And sticking with it isn't about simple willpower. It's imagine yourself being this constructor. I told you about the bricks before. Imagine yourself being the constructor that you built the bricks. It's not just another brick. It's a brick with a serial number, which is different than the serial number of the brick that you did before. And you need all those different bricks to create your entire wall. It's about understanding, it's about working with these natural dips in energy and enthusiasm, rather than fighting against them in order to create your own wall little by little and then create the foundations you want for the house, the palace, whatever you want to build.
Yeah, well, I think there's a powerful psychology behind these tough stretches. And in RPM, we sometimes feel the dip in motivations once the novelty of a new activity wore off and the repetition sets in. We went from high fives and big wins to routine check-ins, where some days progress felt invisible. And that's when frustration can sneak up and cloud your judgment. People want to see steady results, and when they don't, it gets harder to stay on track. And one habit we built was the weekly check-in we do, and almost like a mental reset. We offered space to the team to talk about not just what went well, but what felt heavy or unclear. And sometimes just letting off steam or hearing a different perspective re-energized everyone on the team. And instead of chasing those instant results, focusing on curiosity and asking what feels slightly easier this week than it did last week. And it really helped our morale. It wasn't about measuring everything, it was about making it okay to be in the messy middle. We really dug into the messy middle, and it really keeps up showing up anyway.
Thanks, Michiel. So, what specific progress cues do you recommend tracking, Panagiota? Or to put it in another way, how can I find validation and encouragement even when I'm in the messy middle?
That's a very crucial question, and it's super important to mention it. It's actually really important to look beyond the usual metrics like revenue growth or user numbers, because much of real progress is subtle and happens inside us before it appears externally. So I encourage tracking 3 areas every week. Firstly, notice mood shifts. Is there more optimism or peace than last week? Even if results haven't hit yet, emotional resilience is progress, and it's super important. Second, check for alignment. Do your efforts and daily tasks feel more connected to your personal vision or team's purpose? Alignment is often invisible, but it's a sign things are coming up together. And third, spot the moments of unexpected ease. Are conversations with colleagues flowing more smoothly? Has your resistance to a tough task dropped? Easier communication, quicker decisions, or less procrastination are all quiet evidence that internal bottlenecks are loosening.
For sure.
So I advise almost all my clients to use brief daily notes or journals and weekly journals, not just about big achievements, but every micro win or instance of progress, no matter how small. Over time, looking back on these entries helps reveal a story of adaptation, learning, and gradual movement, even when the bigger finish line looks distant. I see and I always enjoy actually a lot of my clients looking with surprise back their agenda when they just see what they did last month or last 3 months. And it's really, really encouraging to cut in bits of pieces of 3 months the progress and look back the last quarter of the year. For example, what they did. It's not by accident that companies have quarters in their progress. And they say, oh, did I do this thing? Was this was me? How many things did I manage to do? I wouldn't have noticed if I haven't written this journal. So progress is so much more than immediate results. It's these cumulative, often invisible shifts that go under our perception in how we feel, think, and we collaborate with the others.
Yeah, absolutely. And at RPM, we realized that obvious wins aren't always the most meaningful. And that's why we developed the micro win journals. A simple idea, but it is surprisingly strong motivator. And one writes down, and I mean really writing down by paper and pen, writes down the tiniest step forward, sending a tough email, sorting out the workflow, or even just showing off his new attitude. And over time, those journals, just as you mentioned, Panagiota, reveal patterns in progress you'd never noticed in a dashboard. We encourage each other to spot the moments when things felt more manageable. Maybe a meeting was easier, or maybe someone spoke up who'd been quiet for weeks. And these are breadcrumbs that you're moving forward, even if it's not clear at first. And sharing those small wins regularly build a sense of shared momentum. And sometimes those invisible victories ended up being the foundation for bigger changes down the line. Don't you agree, Philip?
Absolutely. You know, sometimes the strongest progress is invisible. More trust in yourself or less anxiety over deadlines, for example. And that goes back to what Panagiota was saying. You know, sometimes it's your, how you are dealing with your emotions changes over time. And if you can see that you're managing better, if instead of being stressed out, you're like, okay, so that didn't work. What can I do now? Or, I know I've been working on this for a long time. I haven't gotten the results I wanted, but that's okay because I know why I'm doing this. And those are wins too. Now, one thing that I remind myself of over and over again is that if I keep doing the work and if I manage my effort, the results will come. And it's very important to identify one thing. Some of you may remember the movie The Field of Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
If you build it, they will come. But I would actually tweak that and say, if you play the game, they will come. Because building the field isn't enough. You actually have to get on the field and do the work. So what I would like to emphasize now is worry about the effort you put in. That is what you can control. And don't worry about the results. The results will come. It just takes longer than we would like. Although ultimately, the results will often be bigger and better than we ever imagined if we just keep going and we just put in the work over and over again. I do have to add a little bit of a cautionary point here, though. I'm reminded of Einstein. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I am not suggesting that if something isn't working, that you just keep doing it over and over again, because it can end up being just banging your head against the wall. We need to adjust, we need to recalibrate, we need to tweak. And yeah, that is something to keep in mind. So do the work, the results will come, but just remember, sometimes you need to adjust as well.
Yeah, and another way of saying to adjust is the recalibration. And recalibration isn't the same thing as quitting. So Panagiota, how can someone tell the difference between recalibration and quitting?
This is always the issue of doubt, of self-doubt, okay? And recalibration is a sophisticated leadership move, and it's very different from quitting, but you need to have your judgment in order to make a decision of which is which. And every single time you need to make this decision is always a different time than before, the previous one. So the key question here I suggest to be is, if nothing changes, will I still be proud of my process and how I've engaged? So this invites you to have honest self-reflection, not just on the outcome, but on the quality of effort and alignment with your values. A small example from my own life here. When I was given repetitive exams for the university and the languages I had to speak, most of the times I was going with a lot of stress into the courses, the exams, and sometimes I was saying, is it really worth it to go and take the exams? What if I fail? And then as I was saying to myself, it doesn't matter. Just go and enjoy. Just go and just honor the fact that you've learned at least some things. Even the smallest part of the things you've learned, it needs celebration. And
Yep.
even if you don't succeed, just go, just do it. And let's see where it can lead you. So um, maybe sometimes you're stuck because the task you did is misaligned with your own strengths, or perhaps with that your priorities have shifted without you noticing. And this is normal, this is okay, because life happens, life goes on, and things change also into your life. So another essential check is to ask if your original goal still matches your current values and your current position in life, or if it's time for a pivot. So, healthy recalibration also means noticing that you need less of maybe pressure or business, and that you need more of right now, rest, partnership, creativity, and you need to have always your self-awareness to be able to do that. Recalibration needs self-awareness, need to be mindfully thinking of your progress, be right there in the understanding of your progress and your situation or your placement, your position. When my clients engage with these questions, they almost always find clarity, and sometimes it's a small adjustment, just tweaking a process, seeking some feedback from someone who knows better and has experience on that matter, or giving themselves permission to pause and reflect, which is very nice. You know, sometimes fatigue is a very bad decision maker. And when you are super tired, you need to have a rest. That allows a lot of clarity to come as well. Other times, though, it's a bigger directional shift. But regardless of scale, recalibration is about moving forward intentionally. That's the key word here, intentionally. Not just grinding through out of obligation. Approaching the messy middle with curiosity and self inquiry opens the door for smarter, more sustainable choices.
Thanks, Panagiota. I love your reframing that calibration isn't quitting, it's an intentional pivot. There's real power in pausing and asking whether the path we're on still fits our vision and values. At RPM, we've had many moments where we felt like what we are doing is not bringing us forward, no matter how hard we tried. Admitting that felt and feels vulnerable, but it's the only way to make space for what can work better. Honest mid-course corrections made us more adaptable and confident, and it's something we constantly remind each other about. Sometimes recalibration means admitting that a previous plan needs a redesign. Other times it's about celebrating the evolution, whether that's changing course or simply sticking out a challenging stretch. Even stopping for a minute to reflect on what's improved rather than just tallying metrics can be energizing. Growth isn't always about adding more. It's often about letting go of what no longer serves its purpose. The RPM approach is to encourage honest mid-course correction. That's the whole point about having Matisse goals, because you need to know where you're going. And at some point you need to say, okay, I'm trying to climb up this mountain, but actually I'm climbing up a different mountain. So maybe I need to change. If a tool or a partner or a system isn't working, we switch. Adaptation is a strength.
Yeah, and even sometimes it's pausing to celebrate what we did change, even if you didn't hit every metric.
Yeah, that's true. So let's make it practical for everyone listening here. Think of a place in your work or life where you currently feel stuck. For a moment, imagine how you treat your closest friend or a trusted colleague if they came to you with the same story. Would you dismiss their struggle, or would you offer encouragement, patience, perhaps even a gentle reminder that growth takes time? Now ask, what's one thing I'm doing today that is better, it's wiser, or braver than when I started? This shift in perspective actually is grounding, and it's super important, and it's actually that it's a matter of perspective. So I encourage you to write yourself a brief note or even schedule a phone reminder for yourself, a phrase like I'm still here or I haven't given up.
That's a good one.
Return to this kind note when discouragement creeps in. I always remember in difficult times what Churchill said in his fantastic speech during the announcement of when he had this radio broadcast, and he explained how British will persevere in the war. And he said, we will, no matter how, what, no matter where, no matter how, even in our lands, even if they come into our homes, we will resist. We will persevere. That is a fantastic, fantastic message of resilience and perseverance. And when sometimes you feel that something's difficult, just remember that some people sometimes in the history just showed this awesome, colossal perseverance, and it helped them. And look the results they got to something that at that specific moment, apparently, it was totally lost. Okay? And here also an important key is self-compassion. Self-compassion isn't just about being soft or letting yourself off the hook. On the contrary, it's about recognizing effort and allowing room for imperfection. Okay, this process, when you practice it, actually increases grit and persistence by making setbacks less personal and more part of the universal journey of growth. Remember, naming your stuckness and responding kindly to yourself can transform resistance into resilience.
That's very powerful. And I really love your reference to Churchill. And actually, the quote comes from October 29th, 1941.
Yeah.
And what he said was, never give in, never give in, never, 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 in nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. I mean, it goes on, but it is such a powerful sentiment. And I think every entrepreneur, you know, should think about that, reflect on that. If you're trying to do anything big, you need that kind of conviction to achieve it. It's a good reminder to everyone, because what Churchill was really talking about is the messy middle. The messy middle is common ground. All of us have to go through it, even though it's hard. Admitting that you are struggling is the fastest way to find a solution.
Oh yeah, and that's what we found out at RPM as well, which taught me that self-compassion is fundamental. It's not optional, and getting stuck isn't a sign of failure or something, but it's really being human. It's being human, not doing human, but it's really being human. And every founder, leader, or creator I know wrestles with it. I encourage people to ask what advice they'd give a peer in the same situation. It sometimes really opens their eyes. And the odds are it would be much kinder than what we say to ourselves. Every now and then we are really too strong on ourselves. And practically, I set reminders to acknowledge small victories and growth moments. Sometimes journaling, and again, writing with pen and paper, journaling about one thing I handled better or one way I persevered, creates enough self acceptance to move forward. And the messy middle is common ground. Admitting struggle helps build a solution, not just a story. And supporting each other in our accountability groups, for instance, even with a quick message or a conversation, that can really turn frustration into action. And to everyone listening here, think about your own messy middle. What part of your work or personal project is stuck right now? Drop a note, send an email, or share your story in our chat. We really love to hear from you. And we want to spotlight real experiences because these challenges are universal. And sharing helps everyone see their own journey more clearly. And remember, even a single step forward or a moment of honest struggles helps the whole community turn doubt into momentum.
Absolutely. And if you have a win or setback this week, write it down and send it in. Community turns doubts into momentum.
Yes. And please be open about your messy middle moments. It's not a shame. It's physiological, it's normal. Whether it's an ongoing challenge at work, a frustrating project, or a personal ambition that's stalling. Sharing normalizes struggle and makes it easier for others to open up as well. In our next live webinar, I'll walk you through simple, science-backed self-compassion techniques and live recalibration exercises so you can experience the shift firsthand. Each resource I share is designed to make you feel better equipped, not just with knowledge, but with tools you can use before, during, and after the messy middle. We'll also take time to respond to your real life examples and questions. This is a safe space, and you might be surprised to hear that your experiences are shared by many in our community, often in almost exactly the same words.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you on this podcast, Panagiota. And we are planning for our webinar on the 20th of October, so it's next month. What will you cover in this webinar, Panagiota?
In October's webinar, I'll go deeper with practical tools for building sustainable progress, especially on the days when motivation is just out of reach. We'll explore emotional literacy. How do you name what's actually going on inside? And use that insight to break stubborn patterns that actually don't allow you to progress. I'll share proven tools and frameworks from my work with the leaders around the world and guide live problem solving tailored to common challenges. Expect interactive coaching, actionable practices, and a supportive environment to workshop your messy middle so you leave with more than inspiration, but with real steps forward, no matter what you're working on.
That's amazing. October's webinar sounds unmissable.
For sure.
Focusing on sustainable progress, emotional literacy, and keeping results moving forward when motivation fades is something every professional needs. For everyone listening, sign up with the free link in the notes, bring your messy middle experience, join the group, share your hurdles, and workshop ideas with real experts who care about turning struggle into strength. Sign up, free link in the show notes, bring your messy middle experience, workshop your ideas, and get real support.
Okay, everyone, here the episode 20 wraps here. So stay curious, keep showing up for yourself, and know that the messy middle is where real transformation happens. So never quit in a messy middle. And if you want more tools, join us at reallydoingit.it and you'll find resources, the RPM Academy training and membership options where we go deeper into frameworks like these. to really make you work your dreams and the things you want to achieve here. So thank you very much for listening to Action Emotion again. And if this episode sparked something in you, share it with a friend and subscribe if you have not done so yet. Do visit our website for more tools and upcoming events. And until next time, keep moving, keep dreaming, and remember, real progress starts with a mindset shift.